The latest RGDP growth rate for the U.S. economy is 2.2%. RGDP is obtained by valuing output in a given year at prices from another year called the base year. It reflects correction for inflation and changes in the price of goods and services. The goal of the economy is to have a 3% RGDP growth rate. The RGDP growth rate went up from 1.7% in 2011 to 2.2% in 2012. This means that we are expanding and moving out of the recessionary gap. The lowest RGDP growth rate since the beginning of the current recession was negative 3.5% in 2009. We have certainly taken a step in the right direction to moving out of this recessionary gap. The latest unemployment rate for the U.S. economy is 7.7%. In order for a person to be considered unemployed, they must not be working but actively looking for work. They also must be 16 years or older and not institutionalized. The goal for the unemployment rate is 5%. Since the current unemployment rate is higher than the goal rate, we are not in a state where most people who want a job can find one. The unemployment rates have been significantly high during the current recession, peaking in October of 2009 at 10%. Since then, it has generally been decreasing. The economy has not been doing well over the last 4 years. The RGDP growth rate is less than the goal rate of 3%, and the unemployment rate is higher than the goal rate of 5%. The cause of the current recession was the housing crisis and reckless investing, which blew up the housing index by 90%. After the housing market crash, investment and consumption decreased, causing AD to decrease, which led us into a recessionary gap. The current state of the economy is a recessionary gap. The current output is less than the potential output, and we are underutilizing resources. There is high unemployment and low inflation. Obama implemented the Economic Stimulus Act, which increased government spending. Obama's fiscal policy proposal includes investing in education, small businesses, and infrastructure. He also plans on cutting taxes for low-income households while increasing taxes for households making over $250,000 per year. Overall, he is increasing government spending and decreasing taxes to expand the economy. His plan will increase aggregate demand, which increases RGDP and price level, while decreasing unemployment. Speaker Boehner had a Plan B, which consisted of 2 bills. The first was the Spending Reduction Act, which would enact deeper sequestering cuts to non-defense discretionary spending, as well as mandatory spending cuts on things such as food stamps, Medicaid, retirement benefits, and more. The second component was the Permanent Tax Relief for Families and Small Businesses Act, which would cut taxes for households earning up to $1 million. This bill, however, was not passed. Obama's Economic Stimulus Act was somewhat successful, but didn't help the economy as much as was needed because once people got money, they saved it instead of spending it. The theoretical purpose behind the Economic Stimulus Act was to increase government spending, which in turn would increase AD. An increase in AD would mean an increase in price level in RGDP and decrease in unemployment. In a recessionary gap, the 2 fiscal policy measures that the government is supposed to use are increasing government spending and decreasing taxes. Obama's fiscal policy proposal does go along with theory. On the other hand, the first component of Speaker Boehner's plan was to cut government spending, which would decrease AD, moving us further into a recessionary gap. According to an article in the Washington Post, Obama's fiscal policy plan will create 1.1 million jobs in 2013. The national debt is the sum of all deficits minus what has been paid back. The current national debt is $16 trillion. The national debt has increased about $7 trillion since the beginning of the current recession. The budget deficit is when government spending is greater than tax revenues. For the fiscal year 2013, the federal budget deficit is proposed to be $901 billion. Although this seems like a large number, it is less than the previous few years. For example, the budget deficit in fiscal year 2012 was $1.327 trillion. In general, the U.S. budget deficit has been decreasing in the past 4 years. Obama's plan is to increase tax revenues by increasing taxes on the wealthy in order to offset some of the government spending costs. Speaker Boehner is working on a spending blueprint that will balance the budget over the next decade. However, from what we saw with his Plan B, he wants to decrease tax rates. This does not add up with his goal of increasing tax revenue.